Hi, everyone. I'm Brant James from Gaming Today, and thanks for joining us for our interview with Todd Ballard, the co-founder and CMO of Alt Sports Data. It's a California-based company that gathers data for betting markets on alternative sports, hence the name. We're talking surfing, we're talking motocross, we're talking rallycross, and even that game where they run around and they play tag against each other. Pretty interesting. So this is something totally new in the market. Would you bet on it? Maybe you would after hearing our conversation with Todd Ballard. Please take a listen. Again, thanks for your time. I'll just start with sort of the broad question. What did you and your like-minded entrepreneurs see as an opportunity out there in the market to create this new? It's ALT or is it alt? How do you say it? First of all,
alt, just short for alternative okay. Sports. And yeah, me and my partner Joe were longtime marketers. I spent about a decade. I was CMO for GoPro, the camera company. Was responsible for a lot of our sports relationships there with athletes, leagues, events, media entities. And coming off of GoPro, Joe actually worked with me and ran the brand side of GoPro. And he posed the question. He started in horse racing. He said, I don't understand why we can't bet on these sports, A, that we've built our careers on, and B, that we know have massive communities behind them and very passionate audiences that are highly participatory, highly risk adverse by nature. And there's not a lot of product for them to bet on based off their passions. And so we went out to find out why hasn't it been done. And we were fortunate to connect through Joe's previous life in gaming, to connect with the industry, I'd say titans of the industry like Joe Asher and Benji Cherniak and Kip Levin and others that we kind of just went to do some due diligence and say, hey, is there something here? And we kind of went down the road first of, hey, we want to create a sports book for extreme and action sports. And they said, no, don't do that. But which is probably the best advice we've gotten to date. But they said, what you could have, which is unique, is access to data. And if you have relationships with these leagues and you have the ability to provide data to the sports books, they're obviously looking for ways to diversify and attract new customers. So we thought about it kind of in reverse order as marketers of, I kind of went through the internal dialogue of, okay, if an operator came to me as a marketer and asked, hey, or posed the question of, we need to attract a younger audience. We want to diversify, create more lifetime value. How would you do it? Well, my first answer would be like, let's give them a product that they care about, because not everybody might not be interested in Big 5, Big 6 sports. So let's give them a gateway that's very interested. They're very interested and very passionate about. And once they're in, then they'll bet on other things. But really, how do we get them through that process of downloading the app? And we all know that's not necessarily the best UI experience yet. So let's get them in the door through something that they care about and they're passionate about and that they consume on a daily basis. So we set out to build relationships with the leagues we knew, and really were the premier leagues across a lot of action and alternative sports. And we're still going through the process of doing exclusive global deals with some of the world's biggest action and alternative sports properties. We have an internal trading team, proprietary simulation models, and we provide a fully managed trading service to operators. And then next to that, we also help drive demand. So we knew that if you just put a sport up on an operator, next to all the popular sports, it's just going to sit there and there's not going to be any handle. So how do we as marketers put our money where our mouth is and shake the trees of the communities around them and help educate and drive them to the operators, which has really been a unique selling proposition for us, where we're not just giving you the data, but we're also helping drive the consumers that are passionate about that sport to the sport book, and on that side have the ability to create some affiliate revenue.
Mm-hmm. Now, from perusing your website, I saw surfing. I think I saw some rally. It looked like I saw some motocross, and I probably forgot some other things. But just fill us in on the sports that we're talking about here, because they're not conventional stuff that you would walk into as a Vegas sports book and pick up.
No, they're not. I mean, really, our initial offering of portfolio sports includes four-wheel motorsports like Nitro Rallycross and Formula Drift, two-wheel motorsports, Supercross, Motocross, surfing with the World Surf League, skateboarding with Street League. We even did a deal with Major Arena Soccer League, which is kind of this underrepresented entity within the world of soccer that has a lot of history behind it, and they're really putting a lot of new energy into the sport, and gives us a lot of volume because there's hundreds of games happening, and it's a fast-paced soccer game where scores are in the 10 to 12 range and not 1 to 3 range. And yeah, so that gives us kind of an initial portfolio. We seem to have uncovered a gap in the market where Radar and Genius are obviously top of their game and biggest in the industry, but are also very busy trying to keep up with the investments they've made in major sports. And it creates this opportunity for these underrepresented sports for us to help bring them to market. So we have a pipeline of a couple dozen sports that we're kind of in conversations with and kind of putting filters to decide who we prioritize and when, based off popularity and or volume and other kind of elements that are important to operators.
Mm-hmm. You segue perfectly to my next question. Sport Radar and Genius Sport are generally the intermediary. They're acquiring those data points that eventually become bets. How are you scraping? Are you just scraping this data? Are you attaining it through deals directly with Surf League or how combination?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. I mean, initially, we used a team to scrape publicly available data. And then as we onboard leagues, those deals, similar to a Radar Genius, give us access not only to their historical data, but also live feeds into their data. So most of the sports we work with, we have an API integration with that give us live scoring, which obviously helps with integrity and latency and everything else. So the partnerships do include that accessibility. With some of the sports we were proactive on, we kind of got ahead of the game and went out and started doing scraping ourselves. But moving forward, it's all in partnership with the leagues themselves.
Mm-hmm. So who are you? Okay, I'll ask the technical question, even though I'll only partly understand it. So you scrape this data and it's somewhere, whether it's on an Excel spreadsheet or a cloud, again, beyond me. So you do something with it. What do you make it before you lease it or sell it to a sports book so they could see if people want to bet on it?
Yeah, so we create the fully managed odds system. So we are providing, whether it's probability based or depending on what the operator wants, we are running and providing markets, and whether that's futures, pre-match, in play. In play is kind of a little bit of phase 2. We do have what we call live heats, and really it's just following the progression of an event. And if you think bracket style, and within it, think of like golf as an example, where it might not be full in play micro bets, but there is a live element to it as an event unfolds. We've built a full trading platform from scratch, and we're fortunate we weren't building on any kind of legacy tech. So we've gotten a lot of feedback that it's a best-in-class trading platform, which we think will create efficiencies for us in the need to scale large trading teams, because just the efficiency and really the UI efficiency of the platform itself. But we're providing a full product to operators, adjusted with VIG if needed, and we can kind of, depending on the need of the operator, can adjust that.
Okay. And again, to boil this down to my simpleton level, you're using your expertise and you're sort of providing, because the computers can interface, is that still a word? You're kind of giving them a big ball of math and code that they can integrate to their computers, and it works, and boom, you've got a line on a surfing competition.
That's the North Star, right? Is that integration. And we also know that many operators, integration is kind of a dirty word right now, because their roadmaps for integration are so overwhelmed and overloaded. Helped us kind of rethink strategy of how can we start working with operators on a more manual process that isn't as dependent on API integrations. Ultimately, that is the holy grail of that API integration, will allow us to provide more meaningful products and more in-play and more micro-level products. But how can we at least create some initial markets that really allow us to engage these communities? And I think what we found within the operators themselves, there's kind of two distinct groups. There's a trading group, and they have a success metric and ROI that's very dependent around handle and the amount of handle they're driving through the sports that they're offering. And then you have the marketing side, and their success metrics are really around new customer acquisition and lifetime value, and not only how you get those customers, but how you keep them. Early days for us, we're definitely more marketing focused. We're very transparent that, look, we know these sports in and of themselves won't initially generate massive amounts of handle, but we do think it will generate massive amounts of new customers. So how do we at least start to engage that piece of the puzzle, and then over time and through integration, we can then up the volume by offering a more robust offering of markets.
Gotcha. Who are you selling this to currently? What are the sports books or whoever you're involved?
Yeah, we're new in our journey. We're only a year old, and we're having really productive, great conversations with all the tier 1 operators. DraftKings has taken our product and they're offering some sports now and will continue to on a manual basis. We're also building out our affiliate side of the business and in talks with some international operators in Mexico and Australia, and beginning in EMEA. Really, we kind of focus North America first, but some of those conversations have started to go a little more global. But we're still very easy, and we found that the selling / convincing cycle, like I mentioned earlier, there's not just a one person decision maker, but you really need to get sign off and buy-in from multiple groups within the organization. So we've been fortunate to have access and conversations with these different stakeholders in most of the tier 1 operators, and they're going really well. So we're really hopeful in the next couple months we'll have some big announcements that is what should be really exciting.
Mm-hmm. It almost equates to the esports conundrum, because it's popular. It's probably going to be an Olympic sport one day, but it still probably has yet to be proved whether people want to bet on it. Now, quite obviously, people are into motocross, surfing, rally.
Yeah.
It's great. But, you're going to help prove, and through DraftKings and your future partners, if people want to bet on this.
Yeah, it's funny because esports has come up a lot I think kind of a barrier into what we're doing a little bit. And I think, again, the difference is we're going to help drive that demand. And I think some of these books have put up, they'll put up a random sport and it'll kind of sit, in the left navigation amongst 25 other sports. And that in and of itself, it's not set up for success. So the conversation with the operators are, not only putting up, but how do we merchandise it? How does it look on the site? And then more importantly, how do we leverage our access and resource to these communities through content, through podcasts, through different types of programming that we can ultimately start driving people to bet on these sports and help drive some of that initial volume to get it off the ground. Mm-hmm. So we're very much marketing minded in this, almost first. And the markets themselves almost become a loss leader in a sense of they're what allow us to do all the other things which we think are going to drive that early revenue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It seems, even still, a couple of years later, it seems like every story must have a COVID question. So here's mine.
Yes.
During COVID, obviously, team sports were shut down. Colorado still, I don't know if they still are. They were betting like crazy on Russian ping pong. There's some weird stuff out there. Volleyball from wherever. These sports, they're alternative, hence the name. You don't have to use it against the filter of a pandemic, but they are alternatives. They are different things, and it seems like the gambling industry realized that it even goes into virtual horse racing or what have you. If you could have something that runs 24 hours a day, you don't have to wait. You're not screwed in the summertime on the last out of the last West Coast baseball game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were able to benefit a little bit from that from when we started at the very tail end of 21, and we could see things like Zed Run starting to take off, and really where some of the interest was in table tennis doing whatever it did, and the phenomenon that seemed to happen around that, and helped create a couple of different filters for us that maybe previously people didn't have because of the pandemic, new variables that helped in our selection process a little bit of choosing what sports we think really have some legs behind them. And obviously, like a Supercross, they fill a 60,000 person stadium every weekend for 6 months. And there's a massive audience and live TV package around that. And then you have some other sports like a world chase tag, which, you know, in and of itself, some people, it's actually amazing how many people have heard of world chase tag, where they're brilliant and they went out and procured the most popular parkour athletes in the world that have massive followings, and they put them in what they call the quad, and they chase each other around this quad, and they have a match every 20 seconds for hours and hours. So similar to a table tennis, tons of volume. It's very roulette-like, and it's red or black's going to win. You don't need to have a ton of knowledge. It's kind of similar to table tennis a little bit. It's very easy to consume and understand and bet on. So initially there were some sports we wouldn't have thought or had interest in because of some of those filters. It's helped us gravitate to some sports just because of where we've seen some of the popularity.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the background of, you know, you and the founders and the other, you know, the leaders there. I'm just glossing it quickly. I saw GoPro, Red Bull, and sports betting, and those things all kind of fit for this kind of venture, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the perfect storm, where one of the primary reasons this hasn't happened to date is we think there's just two worlds that hadn't met, and it's between these lifestyle sports, the content that, you know, probably some of the most engaging content in the world that comes out of these sports, and then the sports betting industry that indirectly know that they want to engage with each other, but there hasn't been the vehicle in the middle to empower it. And that's really what we've created. And we knew we come from the sports side, and we understand that side very well. But we knew to be successful, we needed to bring in people from the sports betting side that really, cut their teeth in that world and understand the pitfalls. And I think it's allowed us to avoid some landmines along the way. And, Mayor Moses, that came from Don Best, and Neil Dealey, who came from Sport Radar, and others have just been, libraries of information for us that have really helped us create a product that we know is relevant and applicable for operators, really what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the menu of sports that you're servicing, they can happen anywhere, but they really do scream California. And if I read the little drop pin on your website, you're in Carlsbad, right?
Correct.
Okay,
yep.
So I mean, yep. This just, everything about it just feels California. So I will ask, did the defeats of props 26 and 27, probably 27 more so, but I'll ask, did they at all affect business plan, your thoughts about how this could take off? Because I would think that Californians might be particularly interested in this because they're doing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I'd say obviously a lot of the Sunbelt states, California, are hotbeds for the sports we're focusing on. When we built our business plan, we really didn't build it with California in mind. California would obviously be a big upside to that, but it really didn't affect what our initial projections were for this business. And I think fortunately, with the growth of the DFS space, it gives us an opportunity to leverage these sports with an audience in a unique way until we get legal here in California. And I think it's obviously just a matter of time. But through a lot of the insights we've done, there's still, 3/4 of the audiences within these sports are outside of the typical sports that you would expect, Texas and California and Florida, where obviously it's not legal. But there still is some massive global communities. And really, because a lot of these sports are aspirational in nature, and it's why a lot of the culture and lifestyle that was derived from these sports has made its way into Middle America and other parts of the world. So California will be a huge upswing for us, but definitely we're not dependent on it to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other sports that you have your eye on that you don't yet have in the portfolio? It seems like there's new sports created every day.
Yeah, there is. And as I mentioned, we have a pipeline of dozens of sports that we're in some form of conversation with. We kind of primarily bucket alternative sports into a couple of categories. We have action sports, which is kind of, your typical extreme sports, surf, skate, snowboard. Endurance sports is a massive category, whether it's the different disciplines of cycling, running, triathlons. That's completely untapped besides maybe the grand tours of cycling. There's still so much opportunity there. Motorsports, a ton of opportunity within motorsports and a lot of leagues that have been untapped in sports betting. But it's almost overwhelming the amount of opportunity there is So it's how we're applying these filters and looking at them and knowing that any one of them of themselves won't get the check marks of an NFL or MLB in not only popularity but volume. But some of these other sports really score high in one or the other. So we think it's enough to ultimately drive some meaningful momentum. But there's a ton of sports coming kind of in the next phase and more than we really know what to do with.
Yeah. This company, from what you told me, is young enough you could very well still be in the 1.0 phase. But what's the next? What's the 2.0? What once you get to finish this chapter, what's next?
Yeah, I think there's just within what we're doing, there's so much more opportunity, not only on the data or the affiliate side, but the visualization side. We're continuing looking at how can we innovate and create a better user experience that's catered to these more alternative sports fans. We've had the idea of at some point in time, do we go completely vertical? And even though early on we were kind of shied away from that, never say never. And whether that's in partnership with somebody or not, I think time will tell. But we're young enough and flexible enough that we can kind of adapt to where we see the industry going and hopefully do it in a more efficient way and kind of learn from history and what's happening real time in the industry to maybe make some differences and pivots that can benefit us and hopefully others.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're interested in doing this differentiated thing, and in this era of mergers and acquisitions, you're not just trying to get merged and acquired and then maybe move on to the next thing.
No, I mean that's always a possibility. It's always on the table, and of course we're, at the end of the day, we see these sports as underrepresented, and what we're doing are going to help elevate these sports and bring new revenue opportunities and more followers and more fans to these sports by letting more people have a stake in the outcome. And we always use the Kentucky Derby analogy of, if you couldn't bet on the Kentucky Derby, how popular would it be? And no disrespect to Kentucky Derby, but it's built around sports betting, and we think a lot of these sports are so dynamic and so interesting, create so much amazing content, which we've seen firsthand from GoPro, that giving people a stake in the outcome will only elevate the popularity and ultimately the revenue to them. So anything that helps and enables that to happen, whether it's directly or through M&A activity or anything else, I think we're open to all of it, but not building it for that, right? Mm-hmm. But if the opportunity presents itself that allows us to continue to grow, then of course we'd be foolish not to at least consider it.
Mm-hmm. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the competitors? I mean, they're the grist that creates the data points. I would imagine they have feelings on this.
Yeah, again, I think they're so busy trying to keep up with demand and the massive investments they've made in these top sports that it's funny. We actually get references from the big two, from leagues that say, hey, I was referred to you by so-and-so at Genius or wherever else, because they just said, hey, we don't have time for this, but go talk to the Alt Sports guys. They have something really interesting. And whether that's them grooming us for something more meaningful down the road or not, I think that their eyes on their current prize and their current investments, and that just opens up an opportunity for us. And we have this unique domain expertise and way of doing things that, and through the deals we're doing that are, contractually obligating these leagues to give us exclusivity. I think we've built some defensible moats that help us defend against big competitors. But we've even looked at maybe we can scale by working with one of the big, with a Radar or a Genius, and leveraging their existing integrations to provide more scale to more operators quicker. So, we're in no scale. I would call them we're no competitor to them, but maybe we're an ally to them on some level at some point.
You gave a great answer to my poorly worded question, because when I said competitors, I meant the guys that are surfing or the guys that are riding.
Oh, the actual competitors.
Very good answer. Very good answer. Very poor question.
Yeah, no, I think, but as I mentioned, as we see this as an opportunity to grow the sport. The industry themselves are really excited about it. They see this opportunity. It drives new potential sponsorships, new fandom, a broader reach. So The industries are very, very excited about it, and I think again they've seen it from the sidelines of sports betting, specifically just growing at this meteoric rate, and they've been trying to figure out how do we get in the door and how do we strategically make sense. So I think by us coming along, it's empowered that opportunity. So we've been met with open arms for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, it must be interesting to come at something new. It seems like everyone's trying to invent the mousetrap in a different way, but you're definitely.
It's refreshing, to be totally honest. It's refreshing, not exactly, and it's nice, as me and my partner both, where we've spent our careers in an industry, and how do you continue to innovate in an industry that's known for innovation? And this is just a very refreshing new perspective on an industry we've spent decades in. So it's really exciting, and we're very bullish on the opportunity.
Very good, very good. Todd, that was my list of questions there. I really appreciate your time today. Awesome. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, you too, Brant. Really appreciate it.
Again, that was Todd Ballard, the co-founder and CMO of Alt Sports Data in California. Are you interested in betting on that kind of thing now? Is motocross a market that you might place a couple of bucks on if you think you're particularly smart about it? Your choice to decide. Anyway, I'm Brant James from Gaming Today, and thanks for joining us.